Shut up and sit down.
Hello everybody, welcome to the FTSQ Podcast. It's been a while. Some of you may have heard the original ones that we did, and I think we only got up to about 5. Funnily enough, the last person was Minter Dial, who is also a friend of Mr. Bernie J. Mitchell and myself. Welcome, Bernie J. Mitchell.
Hello, Bernie J. Mitchell. Lovely to be here.
I can say that because I've known the Burnster for a very, very long time, over a decade. Well, I think it's about 15 years now. Anyway, welcome everybody. Just to recap on what FTSQ Podcast is about, it's about celebrating nonconformists and nonconformity. Mr. Mitchell, you are probably one of my favourite nonconformists. You're a dear friend. You're in my inner circle, and you've connected me to so many people. And we're going to get into the nonconformity bit in a minute, but you are, my understanding of what your current iteration is, and has been for a while, is a co-working community builder, or a co-working community extraordinaire, as I like to say. We'll get more into that as we go, but the first thing I wanted to jump into, and it's probably how we're going to structure this moving forward, is nonconformity. Like, that's such a big area, but I'd really like to understand what it means to you. So what does nonconformity, and being what I would label you as a nonconformist, what does it mean? Discuss.
Ooh, this is where you say, great question, Lena. Just try and buy yourself some time as you... there's... I think about this a lot, and there's people who, like, I would not put on my LinkedIn bio, sidewinder, ninja, nonconformist or something. It's like when you see people who put in their link, and sorry if this offends half your audience, when they say I'm Marmite, or it's like, if you have to say you're something, I'm a futurist. Like, it's the sort of thing that you want other people to say that to you. So I think the way to be a nonconformist is to just sort of like carry on down your path. And part of that, which I'm sure we'll get into, is over the year, like when I was at university, which was a life-changing thing to me. I didn't think I would get into university, and I sort of fluked my way in. I was quite surprised to find myself there, and it was wildly life-changing. And I did education and English literature, and a lot of the books that I was supposed to read at university, I still read now, because now we have Audible and technology and stuff. I'm aging myself there, aren't I? But things like Google Notebook, LMM are great for working out all the stuff. Getting deeper into topics, and I found it really hard to study. And over the year, probably most of what I've learned about this has been in the time me have known each other, is all the neurodiversity and being dyslexic and stuff like that meant I had to. This is where it's going, folks. Meant I had to attempt to bend the world in a way that I would understand it. So I'd be in a room and be like, how come everyone gets it and I don't? Because it just seemed that everybody else understood what was in the book and that kind of stuff. So I felt very outsidery. And looking back now, I didn't sit down and think, I'm going to like David Bowie because he's a nonconformist. But when I was 12 and I still have the fucking book, I read David Bowie's autobiography and I thought, oh, I get that. I really get that. And I didn't, can you imagine how much I understood about David Bowie at 12 when I'd only heard Starman on the radio? But I was always attracted to those people that found it hard to fit in, rather than the people that decided they didn't want to fit in. Because I think there's a difference. There's like, yeah. I'm a bit screwed and the world isn't going my way, so I've got to find a way to cope. And I've decided to be zany,
I don't think it's a funny one, isn't it? Because I don't think you can decide to be zany. I think, to your point that you made earlier, I think you either are or you're not. I think it's an interesting one. I think that wanting to fit in, being as I've got older, I've now got okay with not fitting the mold. In fact, I'm quite proud of it. But I do understand what you're saying. There's those people that choose, to hermit themselves in a log cabin in the Canadian mountains, and they're like, ugh. Or there's people like you and I who are very sociable people, but there's been huge, you and I have talked about this a lot, there's been huge amounts in my life for sure where I've not felt like I've fitted in, and I felt that was a negative for a really, really long time. Luckily, as I've got old and hit my 40s and 50s, I was like, own this shit.
There was like one of the things, this is a bit of an obvious thing, but like like when I was at school, we read 1984 and Aldous Huxley, and I was like, oh, nah, this is it, like immediately, I I had to reread it at university like 20 years ago. And, everything in that book. And I was like, I really don't want to. Everyone in my school was going, I'm going to get work experience at the name of bank and name of corporation and stuff like that. I was like, that is really, really unattractive. And I remember going to the careers person, and this would be a bit cooler if it's, I didn't fit in, so then I started a band called Pink Floyd. But I was just sat in front of the careers guy, and he's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I just really like taking photos and writing. Well, you can't be a writer because, it's really hard to make a living. And I did actually get into London College of Printing to do photojournalism, and then sort of forgot to go. But it was like, there was like no, everyone seemed to have like big shiny, no, not a plan, but like everyone who came out of the careers thing had all these things. If you go to like this university and this university, and you could be like, whatever the jobs were in the 80s, all these things. And like, Mitchell, you can be a photographer or go into retail. And like, probably I was the only person in my year that was given retail as a career option. And that was because I was a people person. Anyway.
See, I remember I'd been working probably about 10 years, and I went and I paid for a whole day of Myers-Briggs testing. Was weird, to be fair. They got me putting little pins and holes to see what my dexterity. Anyway, what it told me, one of the things it said, one did say I should go into marketing and sales, but the big one that always stood out to me, it makes me laugh so hard, was because I always test really high on empathy. I think that day I tested 99% in empathy. They said I should be a funeral director. Now, they're not stupidly in one direction. They're not wrong, because I'm really good at looking after people and helping people, and also dealing with quite high pressure, highly volatile emotional situations. So actually, they didn't get it that wrong. But, oh, God, can you imagine my personality? Welcome, everybody. We're here for a funeral. La la. Oh, God, no.
I'm holding back all the dead jokes here, because otherwise we won't get past it.
Yeah, maybe not. We're not meaning to trigger anybody, but it was just a funny moment for me. But I do understand, which that nicely, I mean, you've sort of answered the question, you sort of haven't. So maybe we'll probably get into it more in the next point, which is about, I want you to tell us about yourself, your upbringing, things to do, which we've already touched on a little bit, education, career, family life, hobbies. Sort of think of your life story and those significant milestones and moments in that kind of non-conformist, square peg, round hole kind of journey for you. And that can be good things, they can be bad things, like whatever. But I know your journey, well, quite a lot of it, because we've talked about a lot of the years, but I think it'd be really interesting to sort of delve into Bernie J. Mitchell. This is your life.
It's much easier to talk about this after like stacks of therapy and reflection. But I got a bursary into a very nice boarding school, not one you would have heard of, and then I just completely failed GCSEs. I did photography, and that was great, and I really enjoyed all the English and stuff. But I enjoyed English and history and stuff like that. But I couldn't do exams, and blah, blah. And at that point, my parents moved from Southampton to Grays in Essex, and God bless their souls, but I still haven't quite forgiven them for that. And so I went from wandering around a boarding school in Berkshire and everyone being called Gerald and Quentin to being in Palmer's College in Grays and Essex, and everyone had a shell suit on. And where I just come from, everyone wore brown brogues and tweed jackets. And chinos, yeah, exactly. It looked like the Dead Poets Society.
Anybody that wears chinos or likes wearing a shell suit, wear what you like.
And like it was a huge culture shock, and then I kind of had to work out how to fit in or deal with it, and I just didn't want to, like disappear into that thing. And I felt really, no one was like horrible to me, but I just felt really out of place. And that feeling you get, I remember at the time, did I Pump Up the Volume with Stephen Christian Slater?
Yep, love that film, one of my faves.
So I just felt like that film, like every teenage angst film of like, I'm in this, one horse town and no one understands me. And
Stephen Christian Slater movie that's ever been made, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. And then when I was like 18 and 3 days, I moved into London and lived in Temple Fortune in Finchley, which is a very Jewish, very like, I don't know if it's Orthodox Jewish area, but it's a very Jewish area. So I couldn't understand why the bakers underneath our flat only sold like 3 types of bread, because I was looking for sliced bread and bloomers, and they had bagels and
bagels.
Yeah and
like a bagel.
So then I was in London, and it was and then gradually lived there, then moved into Camden, and all this time I'm working in catering as a bartender and a chef and a waiter, and I was kind of with the same group of people, and every time like one person got fired, we'd all leave and go to the next bar. And every time a new bar opened, we'd all sort of go there and en masse, yeah. And for folks listening, they might know a place called Break for the Border, which was in Tottenham Court Road, which is closed now. It's GAY, which moved out the London Astoria.
Oh.
And we basically, like, every Thursday night for probably like 5 years, we met in the catering club at Break for the Border. And that was where everyone like found which job to get, and also in those days, the Thursday in the Evening Standard was the catering jobs page, which,
young people, that means we opened this thing called a newspaper and we looked down the job column, didn't we? That's what we had to
go to a payphone or, working in we used to call it catering, but working in hospitality, as it's now called, because that's much more politically correct. I got to work in like one of my favourite jobs was working in this 5-star hotel, which is now the Mayfair Hotel off Berkeley Square, and I met all these rock stars and pop stars, and it was amazing. And then I'd be working in Pizza Hut in Lakeside Shopping Centre when I went back to Grays to try and write my dissertation to finish university. But I met people in horrible dive bars in Soho and 5-star restaurants and cool nightclubs, and the Gary Stevenson book I love, from Gary Economics. I read that, and he grew up in Ilford, just around the corner, which is where we lived, where you've been, before we moved here to Spain. And in that book, he just mentioned so many restaurants I've known over the years. And when his boss leaves Citibank, it says, "I'll take you anywhere to eat I'll take you out for a meal, Gary, because we've got to close it off nicely. I'll take you anywhere you want to go in London." He goes, "I want to go to Chili's in Canary Wharf and have wings." And I opened that restaurant in the mid-90s.
No way.
I was like, "Oh my God, Gary!"
Oh, that's amazing. So you probably had him in there while you were working there, did you?
I think it closed about the time he would have been going to that place.
Oh, right. Okay.
Because the company shut down. But at that point, that was the mid-90s there was like the last train to leave Canary Wharf was a Docklands Light Railway thing, and it left at like 10 o'clock at night. Like Canary Wharf was like no man's land. So, and that's another big deal. I've just seen like London evolve. It used to, like what is now Stratford, probably like when I first moved to London, no one went beyond Spitalfields Market, and then Brick Lane started to happen.
Yeah.
And then we lived on Brick Lane. Me and my mate Sparky, I think, we lived on Brick Lane for a few years around 2000, just before everyone else discovered it. And everything just like moves out and out and out. And I lived in Camden in the 90s, and now it's just like a shopping mall. But it was Prince had a shop in the 90s. Prince and Jazzy B had a shop in Camden in the 90s.
No way. That's amazing. Didn't know that. So during that time, you've obviously, it sounds like you've bumped into a lot of probably what I would consider people that kind of didn't necessarily fit in a non-conformist during your work time. When you were at school, the not fitting in, how did you kind of cope with that from a school and a university perspective specifically?
I think at school, I became like the entertainer. Like I think being married to a clinical psychologist, we call it masking now. But at the time, I used to like, if I didn't know something, I'd like dick around. Yep. And it was really hard. Like I wasn't like crying in the corner every night, but looking back, it was the amount of, you know this, the amount of, it was exhausting, but I didn't know what it was. Didn't know it was exhausting at the time. And, I was quite reactive. And so things like if I, now I'll just, something will happen and I'll read something and I'll just like wait a minute and go, oh, is that it? And then get on. But there I'd be always on red alert. And part of that is not knowing what to do in the situation or not understanding my own emotions and awareness and stuff. But then another side of that is, everything is fascinating. Like I'm sure I must have said this to you over the years. Oh, it's really hard to focus. And it's not hard to focus because I don't enjoy what I'm doing. It's like, like this desk is like really clear, because if I look at, I don't know, I can't look at anything now, but if
dog with squirrel, right?
Yeah, squirrels, exactly.
Yeah.
If I look at something, I will just start thinking about that. I've just spotted a book over here, Unreasonable Hospitality, and I'm thinking about what's inside the book.
Is it ADHD that's doing it then?
It is, yeah. I finally got dragged. No, I wasn't dragged. Like, I finally, super cool wife got me to get tested and everything like that. And with dyslexia, I was like off the charts when I got tested at university, and I got a lot of support around that. And with ADHD, I don't know the exact measurement, but I was like pretty
high.
If they were giving out awards, I would just definitely be silver or gold,
Oh, would you have got the Emmy?
Nice. Absolutely, and a couple of Oscars and a thing. But so reading more about that, it's like, so how? I really don't like it when people go, "Oh, it's a superpower." It's like this is how the world occurs for me.
Yeah.
How am I going to like deal with this? And I think there's a responsibility of when you get that information, like I'm ADHD, is like, okay, so I need to be self-aware with how I react to things, and I need to find coping I'm sure there's a nice way to say it, but I need to find coping mechanisms, and how can I channel that energy? So, I have this app called Endel on my phone that just plays weird sounds to me, but I can just like write for an hour non-stop, which I haven't always been able to do. So, and then what comes out when I'm writing uncovers loads of other stuff, and then I get loads of ideas when I'm writing, and I've like worked out how to write them down and categorize them, and which is mainly like lots of post-it notes on my desk. Don't get too impressed, but
oh god, I just had to get like to clear my desk to be able to talk to you. I just had to move all of those.
Yeah, that's because
that's my brain.
Do you have different coloured ones for each thing, or
I do sometimes, but then I not stupidly, then I run out of a particular colour and it fucks the whole system up, which is what it's done at the moment. So yeah, usually yes,
but yeah.
At the moment no. I'm running out of post-it note colours.
So what else? Because I was about to start another thread there, and I feel there's another question.
Well, you segued really nicely actually into one of the things I like to ask people about you talked about your ADHD and your neurodiversity being called a superpower, but I was going to ask it slightly differently and find out what your view is on, do you consider your non-conformity a superpower? Really was one of the things I was going to let us delve into.
I think like yes and no, because I've never walked around going like, oh, I felt more like I didn't fit in. So one of the lifelong struggles, and I'm like quite pissed off with some people in my world about this, like, oh, shouldn't Bernard get a job? It's like, I really don't want to. People in my family have worked for the same institutions, I'm going to say, for like 40 years.
Yeah.
And I would just like be like Michael Douglas in Falling Down if I had to go to the same building that much. And
we will reference that, but basically Falling Down is a movie where the guy just loses his shit after being a normal person, and then one day he just snaps. Yeah, no, I understand that. That'd be me too. I couldn't cope with that either.
And I part of, I love co-working and everything like that, but part of my fascination is what people do all day. Like I can't sit when I worked for the restaurant. I would, you had to come in every day, do the same thing, and it was fun. It was great people and everything like that. But if I did that for too long, I would just get really bored and I'd start letting off hand grenades. And then I got put onto the new store opening team. So we go and open a new restaurant, which was basically like 3 weeks out. And you train all the staff and it was. And then I moved into events, and I found I could function. I could like work for 4 days with hardly any sleep. No one ever asked me to do that, by the way. But I could work all day, every day, and then crash at the end. But I would be amazing for 4 days. Whereas if I had to go in, like now, when I go back to London, and I just see people, I've thought this all the time, but now it's even more present. Now we live in a little seaside town, not in the middle of not in Ilford. All those people sitting on the train, like it's so ridiculous to like get on the train in the Epping end of the Central Line and go in and get off of Liverpool Street. I know why people do it. I don't want to be flippant, but like, why would you conform to that? Why would you? I know why you would. Sorry, but for the purposes of a more,
I understand the question.
Philosophical conversation.
I'm with you on that. I mean, I've had a weird couple of years, last 12 months in particular, where I was, I need to get a job again, my finances are crap, blah, blah, blah. As some of you may be aware, I'm getting myself back on my feet again, hence why we're relaunching the FTSQ podcast is one of the things. But I was struggling with the whole concept of work. It's not so much about working for other people, because when you've got clients, you've still got responsibilities. It's not about not wanting to take on responsibility, but having to change my state, mental, emotional, physical, whatever you want to call it, and fit into a box. I don't do fitting in a box. Never have, never wanted to. At school, I would bulk at it. In work, I've bulked at it. I've tried to fit in and tried to conform. It made me really unhappy. I was good at doing the things that I did in a corporate job. I don't ever want to do that again. I can't actually, and my health makes it even more so now. So that there's a saying I used to say, I haven't said it for a while, it's like, think outside the box. There is no fucking box. And I don't think there should be for people like myself and you and other non-conformists. I think the brilliance of someone that it fits what I would call that sort of brilliant non-conformist vibe or what have you, and even then they're fitting in. But broadly speaking, a non-conformist, if you try and shove them into a box, all the best bits go, I think.
Yeah, there's a few things there, as you were saying that, because we talk like we have all these different projects in our co-working universe, and there's a group of us that talk a lot about neurodiversity and a lot of what we're talking about here. And a lot of us kind of, you hear all these like stats thrown around, like, so many entrepreneurs are dyslexic and entrepreneurial and ADHD and stuff like that. And it sounds very, very romantic, and
it's not.
It's not. It's like, no. I would just end up in so much trouble, not in a cool way, being, turning up at the 5th floor of a bank in Liverpool Street every day. I'd just like damage something. And people go off on these paths because they don't fit in, and not in a super cool way. It's like, I am, I don't mean me, but like people work out they're unemployable, so then they choose another path, and that path is way more easier nowadays because of technology and the way the economy works and everything like that. But there's this like romance of being an entrepreneur, but actually it's like I would, if I don't know what would have happened.
No romance. It's just fucking hard work.
What would have happened to those people in the 30s,
Yeah.
And I had another little bit there, but and then why, like, over here, there's 2 desks in our office here at home, and I need to concentrate. I need like glowy lighting and everything like this, and kind of slightly bassy, housey music, and super cool wife over there needs the light from above. I cannot actually concentrate with the light from above. And I realised that. How do you deal with
it when there's 2 of you trying to both work in different ways?
I have to leave, But
fair enough.
We just work it out, like, because she's a therapist, so she obviously, I don't sit in the room while she's doing her therapy sessions. So like when we were in Farringdon at Rob's place, the Abelstoke, I found it really hard to concentrate in that room because of the overhead lights, and I just couldn't work it out. And there's all these other things that kind of make you not be able to focus or react or think something's wrong. And it's only after reading like far too many reports about the workspace and biophilic design and neurodiversity setups that you know about it. And that's so that where I'm going with that is like, I'm not sure that's necessarily non-conformist, but it's like having to put in a load of effort to find out how you can function in the world.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because is that non-conformity? I don't think it's intentional non-conformity. It's just like, do you fit the certain expectation of the average of what they put into an office space, or to your point, a co-working space? And I think it's very difficult to, and I've been to some of your courses, not courses, but talks and things on sort of spatial design and things like that, and having to understand the world that's opening up around neurodiversity and spatial design and so forth. And I think what's really interesting is that your challenge is you've got to create something that's going to be useful for pretty much everybody, but that's not possible. Like you can't do everything for everybody, otherwise you'd end up with tiny micro spaces everywhere, which would just be it might be good for some people, but for a lot of people that doesn't work either. And it's like, how do you provide for multiple things, but at the same time not create a building that's 10 million square feet inside?
We had this, like, one of the things I did at uni was education. It was just exhausting, and if we could listen to ourselves now, it would probably be really immature as well. But it's like, every education should be like this, and if everyone did this, it's like when you have to do something for loads and loads of people, like it's actually not interesting. Like, it's so hard, it's not interesting. So imagine you have to make a keyboard for a computer that millions and millions of people will be able to interact with. Like, there's a skill in that, but if you have to make a workspace, it gets to that kind of there's like that Kafkaesque kind of bureaucracy, everything the same. And I think what I don't want to do. When people go, oh, how do you do all of that? I'm like, I just don't want to do that. I'm in a position where I can choose not to do that. So I want to work with these type of people on these type of projects. And it's taken like probably the whole time I've known you, like nearly 15 years, to work out what is the thing where I actually enjoy doing that. And there's I know, it's hurt people along the way, but I've been so stubborn of like, I'm not going in there. Like I haven't functioned well in buildings with other people. I can work on projects with people, I really enjoy that. But like turning up to the same place, even when in co-working spaces I love, I end up like walking around the building and going to the park and stuff like that.
I mean, I've been in office space, co-working space with what was it called? Work hubs with Phil and you and so forth. And I do know what you're like, but I'm the same. I can't stay sitting still for hours on end either. That's why one of the things why I like working from home is that I need micro breaks and my brain needs to do something else in order to stay focused. So I'll get up and do the unload the dish, or actually load the dishwasher, or I'll hang some washing out, or I need to be able to drop. And when I was in an office space, I would do a similar thing, but I would go and talk to people in the offices and have a conversation. And because I don't work really well when all I'm doing is one thing. I have to do lots of things. Otherwise my brain feels like it's going to explode. Because my brain always runs on, as my dad says, it's always like it sounds like he's similar actually after we've talked over the years, is that there's a million conversations going on all at once. And if I'm not doing a lot of the things all at once, then it just gets messy. I don't know if it's that way with you.
It is, but I've read loads about this and, or not that particular, but there's things like me and Chris Mara reading, Still Like an Artist again, and just Austin Kleon, Still Like an Artist, and then
we'll put it in the show notes for you, everybody.
And then this amazing book here by Daniel Blairburn, and I can never say his name right. He started an orchestra with, that book is like at least 15 years old, but he started an orchestra with people from Palestine, from Gaza, and Jewish people from Israel, and it's an orchestra, and it brings people from both sides together to play music together to try and and I am like intrigued at how I don't know about it, just want to be clear, I'm like intrigued at how through the medium of music he gets people to communicate and stuff like that. And it's not some kind of beautiful magic chick that you can put on TV on Saturday night. It's like really fucking gory and messy and uncomfortable. And people
like the gory and messy and uncomfortable, don't you?
And that is exactly. That is really interesting. And then how all these different pieces fit together and the combinations and things is really, really interesting. And so I suppose what I'm saying is like my advice to people going like, I'm going to say like, how do I deal with my non-conformity? Is if you're just trying to be like annoying and attention seeking, which I definitely have been, that's one thing. If you're trying to if you're intrigued by something, like I've got a lot of writing to do today, but my brain is on that book because of something that someone said on LinkedIn today. And there's this whole little thing going on over here, and I have to finish this stuff here and then I can get to that. But like what that is holding, it's over here. I don't know why I'm doing that, but that is holding my attention. And as I'm thinking about everything else, all the bits are fitting together and something will come out of that. You know, that's why Emily and I, Emily, I've known like nearly as long as you, we called our company Third Place Works, which, someone had to pin us down. It's like a co-working consultancy, but Third Place is a term coined by a guy called Ray Allberg. And it's where it's not your home and it's not your office. It's another place you go to do stuff or hang out or work, and it might be a cafe. And there's all these so it's the concept of like, how do people get together and congregate and meet and work and whatever you're going to do in this third place. And so it's not, oh, this is what a third place is. It's like a third place is whatever you make it. And that could just go on forever.
I like that. Third place is what you make it, which is, I guess, what co-working space is, isn't it? It's that third place of, it's not home, it's not technically an office. Well, it can be an office for some people, but I always found it was that really interesting place of collaboration and ideas and thoughts and booting some thinking around. And I did love co-working for that. Struggled with keeping focus though in an open plan for sure.
That's why I always got an office in a co-working space, because I could.
That's why I always wore headphones. So we've sort of, in a good way, we've gone off on a tangent, and I'm kind of glad we've gone on a tangent. But I guess if you're not, it's okay, by the way, not to think that you're a non-conformist necessarily. I mean, I'm always going to stick you in that thing because it feels safe and comfortable to me in that area. But I think watching your journey over the last, I was trying to work it out, it's 15 years of this year, I think, maybe even 16, because I think we met in 2009 on that thing that used to be called Twitter.
In the good old days.
But we actually, I think, because we did look at the world, we do look at the world quite differently, not just generally, but with each other sometimes as well, quite a lot. But at the same time, the thing that I liked about you was there was an energy of interest in lots of things, but also your willingness to share and to help others was a wonderful thing. I think for you and I, that was always a thing that brought us together. But also we wanted to have the right people around us. And I think, do you think having the right people around you has been a really solid, because this is about, celebrating nonconformity is about also letting people know that if they're still struggling with things, there's, I don't want to use the word hope because that just sounds like everything's terrible and it doesn't necessarily mean that, but like there are things, like for example, from the, you've got dyslexia. What I absolutely love about your story is you now write all of the time and you're really, really good at it. For those people out there that had struggled with dyslexia, like I tell them about your journey quite a lot. And I think, I've forgotten what I was going to ask now. Anyway, brain's gone off in a different direction. But like, I think
having the right people around.
Yeah, having the right people around you, having the right people around you. Do you think that's a really important thing or part of the reason why you've successfully ended up in the perfect place for you, by the way?
I think it's integral and it's different from going, you got to have the right team. Oh,
yeah, I don't mean that.
There's, because, we do like someone always says some form of safe space on the co-working podcast we do, and all these different multi-layered conversations about like people, whether they're talking about door locks or neurodiversity or atmosphere and stuff. There's like you can go to, there's people that you and I know and they go like, I'll go, Sangeeta, for instance.
Yes. She's coming on my next recording. Hi, Sangeeta.
So, oh dear, steal my thunder. So we talk a lot about, that's a great example. So the next guest, Sangeeta, is like, she will go to this type of co-working space because she can sit down and she'll feel safe. She's a British South Asian woman. And if she went into certain co-working spaces, there'll be like loads of tech bros with pizza drinking craft beer, and they're not going to harm her, but she'd be like, or they'll do unconsciously, she'll be in a place and people will do something culturally inappropriate or, so she's not at risk, but she doesn't feel like she can sit down, concentrate and do her work. And I know that because there's certain places I wouldn't go because I just, even if it was like beautifully looking, I just get irritated at the people in there. And, that's my thing. So you need to be somewhere that's safe and at home and all those kind of things. And one of my best examples of this is, do you know Janine?
Janine who?
Janine van der Linden, who does the co-working assembly stuff with her. So we've worked together for like a decade now on different co-working projects. And she knows loads about neurodiversity and how to relate to people. And she'll ring me up about something and go, it's taken a long time to get this out of you, Mitchell. Like, is this I'm the great Bernie Mitchell? thing and this spreadsheet is below me, or is this a dyslexic thing? And sometimes it is, I'm a great Bernie Mitchell, and I should have just said, I don't want to do that because, like, you know, I'm world famous. You always don't realise who I am. But a lot of the time...
Snowden, for goodness sake.
A lot of the time it's like...
It's an inside joke, everybody, sorry.
I don't know what to do with that, and I don't know how to ask. And nowadays, she'll just say, what's going on here? And the same with Emily, you know, is like...
Yeah, it's a difficult...
So you... Because we all feel... It sounds so romantic, doesn't it? Because we all feel safe in each other's company, just things move really, really fast. And a lot of that comes down to, like, learning your own form of radical candor with each other. Like...
Oh, I like that. Radical candor. That's a good
Kim
word.
Scott. And...
I think you've used that before with me. I can't remember. Anyway.
So when you, I know, like me and Kofi, like we talk a lot, and it's like, I'm not doing that, I'm doing that, I'm not doing, you know, and it's just very, very quick. And we haven't sat down and mapped it out together, you know, well, if we have a situation, we're going to do this and you do that, you know, it's just like the rapport, the relationship. And so when you have...
Explain who Kofi is quickly. Urban MBA.
Kofi,
Sorry,
right.
Throwing a squirrel on the
Kofi's the founder of Urban MBA, which is the University for Street Entrepreneurs, and he's been running that for 10 years now, and it's a program where we say young people, but, you know, 18 to 35-year-olds, that's young for us now, isn't it? Yeah. Can come and start either do a 12-week program or a 12-month program, and you come in and, like, you and I would have done really, really well in that. And some people come in thinking, I'm going to be the next Richard Branson or whatever it is, you know. But actually, most of it is mindset. So people come in, they learn 7 weeks of mindset stuff, and they build a product or a service or something they can sell. And people at the end come out and they're making food trucks, fashion designers, web designers, AI bots, language apps.
Pretty cool shit, in other words.
People have won TV shows and London Fashion Week stuff. But what's interesting is the people that have done really, really well, it's taken them like 10 years to overnight success in 10 years. And then those people that have done really, really well come back and go like, listen, there's 2 people that have done exceptionally well and they both grew up in Hackney. And now they come back and talk to the people, not in a kind of like rock star
sort of like
way.
Alumni kind of situation. Yeah.
And for people, you know, growing up in circumstances where they don't have a, you know, mum or dad that works for a big shiny bank in Bishopsgate, you know, that is for like Caleb, who I think you know, organised for the first Urban MBA year-long course to happen in 22 Bishopsgate, which is a big shiny building on Bishopsgate.
Isn't that the one where they do The Apprentice? Yes, I think it is.
I don't know. I don't watch TV. I'm a nonconformist, you know. But all these... So I think it was like 15 or 20 people who would never walk in that building, spent a year coming in and out of that building.
That's cool.
And it demystified... They'd all come in there like, you know, caps and cool clothes, and all these people in suits would walk out, and they just realised that, oh, we're all human. You know, yeah. I'm simplifying it for the purposes of time, but, that was an amazing experience for both sides.
I think that kind of approach to education for me has always felt like it's a weird one for me because I was an A student, right? It wasn't easy. I had to work hard to be that A student. And I think looking back now, it wasn't lack of intelligence. It was focus. I was always being told off for talking too much. It was always in my school reports. Lena does amazing, tries really hard. When she applies herself really hard. But I do remember the one thing that always came down. So the one thing we have to talk about though is how much she talks. Well, guess what I'm doing? Podcast. Woo. But I think what's interesting about education is I think being okay to find the right sort for yourself, and it might take a while. Like for you, it's taken lots of different iterations of trying different things. Same with me to get the education. I did not go to university. which is weird. And I remember my teachers having a massive argument with my parents. It started off with an argument with me first, but then with them, of like them not understanding why I wasn't going to go to university and why I wasn't on that track. I just never wanted it. And it's not because my parents didn't. My dad has a Bachelor of Arts in Art History and Anthropology. Blimming smart man. He did teach me how to educate myself, and I'm still, it's going to sound cocky, but when I go into a room, I can hold my own with some of the smartest people out there.
You've held your own with me, you know.
I know, right? And that's not about being cocky. It's just because I read a lot, I absorb a lot, I notice a lot. But what I did know from the very outset in my job career is that I learn better on the job and doing than I do with somebody reading something to me or teaching me a lecture or whatever. In a lecture, I'm bored. So it's finding the right way, I think.
Two things there is, and this is like, you have to work out how you learn. And I've read like 3 or 4 physical books in the last 20 years. And I have like over 1,000, I haven't read them all, but I've got over 1,000 audiobooks. And a lot of those books I've read like 10 times because I can walk around and I've absorbed it. So and then someone sends, I just delight at this nowadays. There'll be like a 20-page report that makes you want to rip your eyelids off just to cause some excitement. And we'll go into some project meeting and I would have listened to it and I've got to listen to this because I'm afraid of not knowing what's in it, you know? So I'll listen. I can listen to it at like 350 words a minute 4 times. And
you listen to it super fast.
And things will just pop out. It's just quite painful. And then I'll be in the meeting, and very often I'll be like the only person that's read the thing. And I'll be like, didn't you? But wasn't it in the report that we were going to, be using black tomatoes instead of red tomatoes, and that's why we were going to call? How do you know that? And that
the report.
Yeah. And there's something else you said. It's like learning how to learn, and then little conforming thing about education came in. So I went to university when I was like 25, and there was a guy who was my English professor, and he also ran a stand-up comedy company, and he's from New Zealand actually. And
good old Kiwis.
He used to work for the Royal Shakespeare Company. He was a roadie for Pink Floyd and David Bowie, and he loved literature. He just didn't want to do this stupid university thing. And then he got sick of people talking, he'd be on a job with someone, and someone who's at university would be like gobbing off, and he'd be like, you just don't understand Samuel Beckett. Like, that's not what he's saying, and this is what George Orwell was saying. And then he went to university, and in 10 years, he did a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD.
Oh, wow.
And he's like red hot. And he would walk into any lesson, his like thing, and he loved it, and I loved it that he loved it, was like any class on campus in the English, probably any class on campus actually, but any class on campus in the literature department where there's not a teacher, he'll just go and teach a thing. And he'd walk in and he would ask questions. And once he came into our class, which was 19th century American literature, and said, so what's the book? And it's like Louise May Alcott, Little Women. And he said, which major 19th century American event would mean that all the women were at home and all the men were off somewhere else, which is the American Civil War.
Civil War, yeah.
And which I didn't know at the minute. And then he spent 10 minutes saying someone in this, and there's like 30 or 40 kids in this room, someone in this room must know what happened in America in the 19th century that would create the situation. And then he was getting a bit impatient because
nobody know.
Some people were afraid to answer, and then he got to this point, and I'm going to make him sound horrible there, but it was very cool. It's like, listen, folks, I know some of you here are only here because your parents want you to be here. It was like a speech. It was like an Al Pacino speech in a Christian Slater movie. Some of you are only here because your parents want you to be here. Some of you are only here because you haven't got any idea what to do. And this is like the next logical step in society is to like have your parents pay for you to come here, use all the taxpayers' money, get your student loans, spend it on beer, and then when you come out the other side, you hope you might work out what you want to do with your life. And then there's a few of you here that like have chosen this. At which point, I hoped he would pick on me and say, like, Bernie at the back here chose to come to university, but he didn't. But but when he went through all that, like, that was one of the first times I sat in a room and thought, I started to take it more seriously, not because of anything he said to me, but it's like, actually, I chose to be here. Yeah. All these other people have like sleepwalked into this. Did I say that right? Sleepwalked into this system because when I finish school, I go to university. And it's like, mate, university is like way bigger than that, isn't it? You know?
Yeah. I mean, I did go. Like I say, I didn't go to university. That is a little bit of a lie. So I didn't go to university straight out of school. Went straight in and I got a job with an entrepreneur that was on his way up. And he'd started with 40 New Zealand dollars in his pocket. And by the time I left that job, he was already on his way when I started. He had rest homes and retirement villages. And by the time I left, as a 20-year-old, I'd experienced being part of the team to launch it onto the New Zealand Stock Exchange. So it was pretty amazing. And it was the first of its kind of business in the world, I think. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, he's gone on to be one of the top wealthiest people in New Zealand. And actually has got rest homes and retirement villages over here, which I think his son, his name was Cliff Cook. Anyway, not the son, my boss. And what I learned from him, though, I am getting there. What I learned from him was invaluable around entrepreneurialism, which I also learned a whole lot from my parents as well. But what I did try and do, and maybe it's because I had bosses at the time that were going and doing MBAs when they just started, and actually they were worth something. Sorry to everybody that's got an MBA. But they were.
You go there for the networking.
Well, no, back then they were for senior people only. Like you had to be a senior something or other to be able to do them in New Zealand anyway. Anyway, long story short, it kind of inspired me, mainly because I wanted to learn more. I went and started doing a postgraduate diploma in business, majoring in marketing, which is how you do it in New Zealand. You sort of major and minor. Anyway, the reason I did it, because I wanted to learn, and because by that stage, I've been working 10 years. So I was 27, I think, because I started working at 17, 27, 28, something like that. I started doing the course, and I wasn't learning anything. And I was paying for it while I was working full-time as well. So I was paying for it myself, working full-time, and not a 9-to-5 job either. I was the only advertising manager, sales manager on a New Zealand business magazine. It was at the time. So I was trying to do that, and I got 2 papers in, passed them both quite easily, was bored, and just stopped because I thought this is just an absolute waste of time. And sorry, the reason why I was allowed to do that is because I've been working 10 years. I got signed off to do a postgrad, even though I hadn't done my diploma already. But I think for me that was kind of a waste of time. But I wanted to learn. I hadn't cared. I hadn't gone to get the letters at the end of my name or any of that kind of bollocks. I had gone because I truly wanted to learn. We were all adult students in the class, and it just didn't fit how I like to learn. And I've completely, again, forgotten why I was telling that story. Anyway, this is how my nonconformist brain works. Or doesn't.
I think there's something about, like, there's people I know who, like, I felt, I've got I know this is a whole other podcast. Like, you know, my imposter syndrome and lack of self-worth. Yeah, I've read so much because part of it is like this mental insecurity of not knowing anything because of my early childhood experiences with education. And now, but always, all the way along, I've just loved learning stuff. Like every time someone put me in a situation, and I think this is part of the, I don't know whether it's like ADHD or dyslexia, but I will, if you said we're going to do a podcast about potato chips and beetroot, I would just go and research beetroot and potato chips because I want to, it's not even I want to know, I just feel I have to know, and you may never ask me about it, but I'm just really, really good at learning. And which is why I was going with this, sorry, is I have friends who just keep doing qualifications and paying through the nose for them because they think they need the bit of paper. And I think the bit of paper is, I like, even if I didn't get a bit of paper from university, the whole experience, like I found out what colonialism was because we don't get taught about that in school. Like the whole fucking world opened up for me, and I'm still friends with my tutors from university.
That's
and
cool.
Like, and it's all about the books. And I still don't think I've like, you know, that's a never-ending adventure. But that bit of paper, it'd be disrespectful to say it's worthless, but I didn't get a job because I had that bit of paper. And these people think, even freelancers, like, I've got this certificate, this qualification, and like, would you ask to see someone's qualifications? I want a video
I've
made.
barely asked to look at somebody's fucking CV, to be honest. I'm not a fan. I don't care. I hired the lovely Oliver, who then went on to work for you after me. You know, I didn't give a shit about his CV. I cared, but I knew the person straight away, and I just
That
picked up.
guy is amazing.
I know, he's amazing. Shout out to Oliver there. But I think what is interesting is, and I've always been like this, there is a huge amount of curiosity in me. And I think that's what drives my desire to learn. Like, I just want to soak up everything. Like, when I hit 50, I was really excited because I was like, okay, I might be halfway through. My family lives to a ripe old ages, so it was pretty much halfway through. But also, I've still got 50 years to do all this stuff. How am I going to do it all?
You could learn piano.
I already know how to play, although not very well anymore. You know, there's a million things I want to learn and I want to find out and try. And, you know, lots of people like to travel. One of the main reasons I like to travel is not the travel itself. I hate actually getting there, but I like learning about new cultures, new foods, new ways of doing things, being inspired by other people that look at the world in a different way. And I guess, you know, the reason why I've always been attracted to what I consider the nonconformists, the square pegs and the round holes, the squiggly brain people, is because they don't look at the world in the same way as what everybody else does, and they challenge my thinking, rightly or wrongly. Some of them wrongly, some of them rightly. But I think to be curious about things, unpack stuff, understand. Like for me, understanding. I remember at school, the frustration I used to give my teachers from the earliest was like, yeah, that's all very fine, but why? Oh, it used to drive them insane. But I think they also liked it, but I think they struggled with it because
it was
they
inconvenient
go,
in their
I'll
day.
answer that later, but we need to go back to the curriculum. But I think that's always been a part of me. And I see that in you for sure. Like you know, if it wasn't for you, I would never have come across Simon Sinek, who is my absolute favourite, you know, person when it comes to books or reading or what have you. He's challenged me at every step of the way. And it helped me so much as well. Oh, you're looking for the book now, aren't you?
No. I'm looking for the
you know,
from
but
from that lunch,
oh
that
yeah,
dinner.
I do remember that night. I've got a nice picture. Simon Sinek will put his things. He's the guy that talks about the golden circles and start with why. Good leaders eat last, and he also has the infinite game, which is just for me was a massive game changer as well. It answered a lot of things for me. But anyway, we digress. What I think was always been good though is you've always battered me over. Oh, have you read this? Have you read that? Da da da. So you feed my desire for new things and enthusiasm, which brings us back to that point around, you know, how do you like to learn? And I like to, for me, it's video is my thing. Reading as well. I struggle with audio podcast mainly because I'm a visual person, so I need to see what I'm listening to. Otherwise, I just have to keep listening to it 10 million times in a 5-minute period, which is annoying for just about everybody. But I think the learning question, I think for a lot of people that consider some nonconformists, they've obviously education in its form has often frustrated them a lot, and the people that I've spoken to anyway, which brings me to a point that I wanted to then talk about. It's like, what does the future for nonconformists look like? Like, there's change happening, recognition around neurodiversity, recognition around it's okay. And the wording that I like to use is don't conform to the norm. There is power in your difference. And I do believe truly that. I know for me, the moment I realised I could tap into my Kiwiness, I could tap into my looking at the world a different way. And I don't want to necessarily use the word superpower with it, but it definitely, once I tapped into it, I was realising, actually there's a lot I felt more at home in myself and who I am. So for the future of nonconformists, those people that kind of challenge, fuck the status quo, as I like to say, which is what FTSQ stands for. What does the future of the nonconformist look like? Sorry, that was a really long-winded question. Future of nonconformists.
Great question, Lena. I think there's a lot of people that like the idea of challenging the status quo and being like everyone's like, I want to be different, I want to challenge the status quo, I want to say fuck the system and all this kind of stuff. And then when it gets to it, there's so few people, like companies go, yes, we want to, all that stuff, and then
they're too scared.
And then it's like, oh, but we're not going to speak out about this in case this section of society stop buying our product or something like that. And it's like everyone wants to be different until it's time to be different, and then and I've like misread the room several times, and can feel. I think it's important to me. I wouldn't recommend it, but like I misread the room and then had this feeling of like, oh, that is really, really awkward and uncomfortable. So that's what it feels like. But so few people I'd rather have not. Those instances, I'd rather have not misread the room. But you go, oh.
Yeah,
but
you learn from it too, don't you?
Yeah, and then there's like carving your own path and all that kind of stuff. But I just think I'm going to answer that. I'm going to contain that answer in this. Is I have a lot of freelancer friends who are like crying because AI is taking their jobs, and there's one person that I rang up the other day, and I just assumed that they would have learned everything there is to know about writing AI and researching and stuff. They don't even use it to research their things. I'm like, why are you still Googling? I can't believe, like, if someone came to me and said, can you write me a 5,000 word essay on beetroot nuts and mountain bikes and how they, I would just go to deep research, do it. And I know I have the skill to write the thing. So I'd be able to write something that's not shit, but I'd know how to research it much faster. Whereas before you'd have to go to the British Library and look up on Google and read loads of stuff. And so I think because it's like, I don't know, everything's infinite now. So if you can be bothered to learn how to learn how to use technology, I think there was, I can't remember her name, Letitia, who is, can never say her second name. She's French, and
we'll find her and we'll stick it in the show notes.
Yeah. She's an amazing writer and thinker about the future of work. And, like one of the people I ring up once a year and say, what's next? And she was the person I rang her up in April 2020 and said, all this noise everyone's making, what do you think is the thing to like just pay attention to? And she said 15-minute city. All that other shit, just drop it off a cliff.
15-minute city.
Which is a concept by Carlos Moreno, where Paris has been turned into a 15-minute city. They've pedestrianised all the centre of town. Oh. And that has a huge knock-on effect. Like if you look at Gary Stevenson, the Gary's Economics, John Alexander, who you've met, Carlos Moreno, who is the professor, he's Colombian, he's at a French university, came up with a 15-minute city, and then Dan, the Blue Zone guy, the thread that ties them all together is community and living locally and like living with people and talking with people and having movement and doing stuff together and not just taking, orders from on high. So that's one of the, like, that's, I don't know if that they would have got the voice they have now when, in 2010, but I think those people are arguably nonconformists. So I think they're getting more and more, I didn't think of this when you asked the question, but it's just popped in now. So
good.
Like I would hope, rather than like a futuristic prediction, that, you know, with the combination of like people realizing that more and more can be automated, you can like find out more, you can educate yourself more faster, that actually being together is where the magic and the learning is. And, you know, where we live in Vigo here, we have the same technology, you know, the internet, everything, but people don't eat food in plastic sandwiches after getting off a train, in plastic containers after getting off a train. Like, they go out and eat and they connect and everything like that. When we had the power cut here, everyone just sat outside bars drinking cold bottled beer, like they had a responsibility to finish the beer before it got warm.
I love it.
it was like really safe. And it's not like, oh, everyone's more community minded here, but just people, I don't know, there's less of that Kafka drone. I get up, I go in, I get my Pret a Manger sandwich, I pay €5 for a coffee because it's the only one available, you know. Yeah. That didn't answer your question, but like...
No, it kind of did. No, it kind of did, actually, because it's about...
If you bother to pay attention, the future is like friggin' amazing. And you can iterate faster than ever. That's my smart answer. Because of technology and AI, like you do in your other podcast, if you work out how to use that, not abdicate your brain to it, but learn how to use that, you can iterate faster and faster and faster. Yep. So what's taken you and me, maybe this is the final answer, right? What's taken you and me like a decade to work out, we could have done that in like 2 years. Yep. By the amount of research, reading, not going down rabbit holes that Google provides, you know.
I quite like a rabbit hole, though, to be fair, but anyway. No, that's cool. I mean, that's a good answer, I think. I like that answer. Yeah.
That just came to me, sorry.
That's good. Well, it's, you know, those moments are good, aren't they? So the last question is, if there was... I was going to ask you about which nonconformist you admire and why, but I'm going to be quite more concise about that. If there was one nonconformist, broadly speaking, nonconformist that you could think of that you would like to see on here as a guest, who would that be and why? They've obviously got to be alive.
I was going to say David Bowie.
I mean, if I could, I would, but I'm not quite that good.
I think there's loads of people, but the one one person I think is really important at the moment is John Alexander.
Oh yeah,
he has.
He's cool.
The way he's.
John, we're coming for you. You're definitely going to come on the show.
I can read his phone number because that positioning of like, and like the. Because, you know, your background is in an agency and everything like that. He articulates the good and the bad of working in an agency in communication and marketing. And, yeah, because there is value in it. And then he's like, this is the end of the consumer story that's killed us all. And Mary, Queen of Shops, has the same kind of narrative. And there's lots of other people around. And then this is a citizenship story. So he's not coming along going, oh, we should all hug trees and stop buying stuff, because that's not going to happen. He's like, this is how... him and a load of people, and he connects people together. And he doesn't say like, this is my idea and you all have to buy my book and sign it. He's like, there's all these people out there thinking like this, and you all have to keep connecting to each other. And that, I found him in like 2020, and it's through Anne Hawkins, and it's just I've seen that movement snowball, and it's not a hypey movement. It's like, oh no, yeah, this is it. He there's a thing he posted on LinkedIn the other day, and he is capable of articulating these things really well. Is Labour will tell you that they've got more people like this than like all the parties do their thing, but Labour will say we've got the biggest majority of people who want us to do this, and that's why. But actually, when on this graph, the people that I don't trust any of them is like 50%, and don't know is like 10% of the nation, or the people that were surveyed specific. And then the other like remaining 40% is battling out between the political parties and stuff. And there's a load of people in society that like this is no news to anyone listening to this podcast. They just don't trust media. They don't trust politics. They're like sick of it. And they need They need another way that isn't like some crazy, radical thing. It's just like, I just want to get on with life, mate,
Yeah.
And that is the communication, the community and coming together citizenship thing.
I really like what you just said there. I mean, I like because I have heard him speak at one of your events a little bit. And one of the things that I think is really interesting in what you just said, and we'll wrap up in a minute, but it was just around people think, because I believe in fucking with the status quo, that I want to push everything to the nth degree. Some things I do, but I get challenged a lot going, well, you should think that because you're fuck the status quo. Actually, no. Sometimes it's about challenging it and realising that actually a huge part of it's working, but just this little section isn't and needs an adjustment. Fucking with the status quo isn't literally screwing it over and throwing the baby out with the bathwater. For me, anyway. For me, it's about challenging our own thinking, challenging what others are thinking, and challenging what appears to not be working, and sometimes figuring out what bit works and what bit doesn't, and either adjusting it or throwing it out. It doesn't necessarily mean pushing everything to the nth degree, because and I'm a maverick, not an anarchist. And there's a big difference, Like anarchy is about just fucking with everything and not giving a shit at the consequence of what happens with it. That's the people that wear the masks on so-called protests, who aren't protesters at all, they're just anarchists, as opposed to those people that are going on marches and walking and questioning things, but questioning without the anarchy. They're challenging stuff, they're questioning things, actually, that's the right word. They're questioning everything. And I think for me, the fuck the status quo is about questioning everything,
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to the end of the podcast. It's been longer than I thought. Whoopsie. I had a funny feeling you and I would do that. Thank you so much for coming on, for being the first of the refreshed FTSQ
The new
podcast.
sweeter smelling.
Exactly. New sweeter smelling FTSQ podcast celebrating nonconformists. And just thank you so much for your thoughts and thinking on that, being in my life, because you've always been amazing. And I just want to say thank you to the listeners. Some of you will be old listeners. Some of them will be new, hopefully, as well. And I just want to encourage everybody out there to do what I do, which is fuck the status quo, which is all about questioning it, challenging it, and see if we can making it better. So yeah, that's kind of it. First
Hurrah!
of the new season. Yay! See you later, everybody.